Welcome back, guys, to the This and Much More podcast. I'm Evelin, and my co-host is
Rollie Vogues.
And our special guest today is...
Hey, what's up, everybody? Moy Rivas.
What's up?
What's up, Moy? First of all, I want to thank you for letting us use the space.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So it's pretty dope, and just we've been here a couple times now, So,
yeah.
Cool.
And for the people watching, obviously this is our second podcast episode that we're doing outside of our actual nice. Space, Right. So it was our first time doing this, and at somebody else's spot. The first one was at Post.
Okay.
Post
Houston, yeah.
And that one was hard too.
Yeah,
the setup.
But before we get into Break Free and everything, I kind of want to know a little bit about your background.
About you.
So it's where'd you grow up?
Yeah, so a lot of people may not know this. I'm originally from Monterrey, Mexico. I was born in Monterrey, but never lived in Mexico. So I lived in the U.S. or I lived in Houston my whole life.
But you were born there.
I was born there. I was born in Monterrey, but I've lived in Houston my entire life. My family had a house out there, so I was kind of I was born out there while they were out there visiting,
Okay.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and so, but I grew up here in Southeast Houston in an area called Manchester, literally right outside of where DD High School, Milby High School is, in that area.
Yeah. By Milby?
Yeah, it's not directly behind Milby, but kind of catty corner to Milby. There's some railroad tracks, and you cross 610, and it's right there. It's right next to the Ship Channel Bridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I grew up there for probably till I was about 10, 11 years old, and then ended up moving to Magnolia and lived literally a block away from Mason Park. And if people are familiar with Mason Park was legendary back in the days for all the Sunday get-downs with all the lowriders, and all the cars would come through and hang out every Sunday evening. But yeah, most of my life was spent in Houston, in the Southeast area, and that's why a lot of things that I do and where I contribute is to these areas. Yeah.
I feel like that's why I kind of was super familiar with you, because I grew up in Magnolia too.
Okay, cool.
But it was Magnolia, and then we would go to Southeast, so it was just a back and forward.
Right,
know?
right.
If you don't mind me asking, you do not have to say, how old are you?
I'm 39 years old. I'll be 40 in November.
Oh, happy early birthday. November what?
November 25th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Dang.
cool, man. But yeah, it's just cool having to be able to talk to people that grew up in the same areas that we did, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, Mason Park, I must have missed all of that, because we only went to Mason to go run,
No, yeah, but
Yeah,
Mason
but-
Park is also the park for Easter Sunday.
Yeah,
know,
but
that's the part
how old
that-
are you guys? You guys are probably 25 to 30.
We are way younger than you. Just kidding.
I'm turning 31 in a couple weeks.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I'm 25.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm 28. I'm going to be 29 in December.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might have, or quote unquote, missed it, because essentially that era of Mason Park was really getting down to those levels, early to mid 90s.
yeah.
It really started to die out late 90s, I would say between 98, 99 and 2000. After that, it really slowed down, because it was notorious for a lot of gang violence as well.
Oh,
So a lot of people were getting killed or jacked, and it was just bringing a lot of negativity. Even though it was a thing to do, people knew that if they wanted to run up on somebody, that was where everybody was going to show off and get down, and it was a good time to connect with people. So, I have close friends and family that were connected to a lot of that drama, and people within our circle were losing their lives during this time. But if you followed that culture in that community, and anybody that knows lowriders or that type of get down, they're very familiar with Mason Park during that era.
Isn't it crazy that specific park created so many different memories, in different eras? For you, it was that, right?
Yeah.
And for me, it was I remember it more when I was little, the Easter Sunday or the stuff like that,
Yeah, for sure.
The games that they used to do out there. And then whenever we got together, it was to go work out and go get some running.
Yeah, because she was closer over there than I was.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
for
I grew up more South Houston, Pasadena, Southeast type, you know.
Yeah.
For me, like having to go to Mason Park to go run was like
a drive.
Like a drive. I was like, do I want to go that way, you know?
So why'd you choose Mason Park?
Because it had the track and stuff,
because I lived in that area.
And
okay.
Yeah,
that
and then there was like water and shit, you know.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and for me, outside of like just being familiar with the park because of the lowrider get down on Sundays, it was the first place that opened up their doors to us to actually like practice and break and get down. Because when I started breaking in 1995, and at the time you would kind of look for places to kind of get down and have fun with your friends, but everywhere we went, we were getting kicked out or just getting yelled at for whatever reason.
It just had a bad image.
It did. It was so associated to thugs and gangs and stuff like that because of the way we were dressed, and so. Little did they know that it was actually a positive alternative for us. Mm-hmm. Like it was something that was much needed in my life at the time, that it was really redirecting us from those type of things. And then I remember coming from where I come from, it was just like I actually went to Mason Park trying to look for some trouble. And when I was going to Mason Park to look for some trouble for somebody, I ran into guys that were dancing there. And then the guy that I was actually looking for is actually the guy that invited me in. And it really it was like a shiny object that distracted me from what I was actually there to do. And they invited me in to say, hey, we practice here. Aren't you Moy? Aren't you from the area? Like, we hear that you started dancing too. Like, come join us. And so immediately I forgot what I was there to do because, I just kind of took it as a godly thing and was like, you know what, man, like, I don't need to be doing that. Let's do this. And Mason Park gave us the opportunity to be there every single day, as long as they were open and the spaces were available. It's like, use the stage or use the clubhouse or use the gym. If whatever area you can find, we rather you guys be here. And so there's so much historical value there with us because, again, it was the first place that allowed us to come in and be us and do our own thing with no judgment. And that was from like late 95, early 96 till I guess I started traveling the world and doing that thing. And
when did you start traveling?
Yeah, I would say I started getting opportunities to travel around like late 98, early 99, but really took off for me right the year 2000. Yeah.
Dang.
So at year 2000, you're like what?
I was...
You're like 10 when you started breaking, right?
I was like 11. I was like 11 turning 12. So I was maybe like, I don't know, like 15 years old when I really started kind of, getting opportunities to travel around the world.
And that was through breaking?
It was all through breaking, yeah.
So who was the one taking you, I guess my question is, because you were so young. What about school? Like...
Yeah, so to get into that, like, for the people that were like inviting me places and things like that, it was just people that were... kind of getting across any type of content they got a hold of, right? And at the time, it was VHS tapes. So it was like a copy after a copy after a copy, and it was like, we want this kid, and this kid is from Texas, and it's a rare story, right? Because at the time, people thought that, B-boys or B-girls were associated to two areas, and it was like Los Angeles and New York. And then they thought that everything from Texas was like cowboys, haystacks, and horses. You know what I mean? And so for people to kind of see something different and impactful come out, I was getting hit up by different promoters, and a lot of times they were at the time just finding a way to get a hold of my phone number because email was scarce, internet was scarce, and so they would call directly to my mom, and my mom, in Spanish was like, "No vas a ir para ningún lado. No, you're not going nowhere. You're a kid," And I remember I would talk to my mom, and I would always tell her, like, hey, like, these are opportunities that we may not ever get. You never got them. Like, trust me with it, And, I remember early on, like, a lot of the permission was kind of going through my mom, and she kind of more like, really just trusted me. She was more just like, all right, you're my son. I love you. Do what you love to do. I can't say I fully support it, but if it's something that you love, go for it, And then on the educational side is, thankfully, I was always a good kid in school. Like, I might have been doing some stuff like behind the scenes that was not, of good positive character, but I was always an honor roll student, like literally from like first grade all the way up until I graduated.
Where did you graduate from?
I graduated from Milby High School.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I graduated a year early. So my graduation year was actually 2002, but I actually ended up getting out 2001 because I really focused on getting schoolwork done because I was getting all the opportunities to travel. So to answer your question, even the schools, whether it was through middle school or high school, they were letting me kind of achieve these accomplishments because they knew that I was a good student. And so they were like, you're good. We don't have to worry about you. You're like, top 5 in the school or top 10 in the school. So it's like, just talk to your teachers, take the work. And so,
which is crazy because all those absences that you had now is like your mom has to go to court. You know
actually, I mean? even then, but I guess, I don't know, man, it's by God's grace or just the value that people were placing on me that allowed me to kind of navigate around that type of thing because I wasn't really receiving absences. It was like they were like, we got your back. Like you've never failed us, on the educational side.
Yeah.
So it's like, why should we fail you when you're out there achieving something that
is so
a lot of people
and I feel like it's kind of
achieving.
crazy too because it's Milby. I guess back in the day, I think Milby had like bad rep.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but for them to kind of let you, it is kind of like.
Well, I think
rare.
that's a life message in itself. It's like, when you give something 100%, it'll give you something like the max return you can receive to that is 100%. So I've never given Milby or the educational system at Milby 30% or 40%. I've always gave it 100%. And so at the time, the admin and everybody that was working in the building were like, hey, you give us 100%, we're going to give you 100%.
Yeah.
So it might have had a bad rep and it might be in a bad area and it might have all these crazy stories that are revolved around it from a negative standpoint. But just because it had that rep doesn't mean that I deserved that rep.
Yeah.
No, yeah, for sure.
So it was kind of one of those things that it was just like, I was just kind of really blessed by that opportunity to like, I was like, hey, I never screwed you over. Don't screw me over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we kind of like jumped over it a little bit, but like what kind of sparked the whole b-boying thing? Like what, did you see something on TV or like that wanted, made you want to do it?
I think what sparked the breaking, love was, number one, I was associated to breaking by my older brothers and my sisters that were all somewhat of dancers. But I remember my oldest brother, Julio, used to be a b-boy in the 80s. And so I remember being, 4 or 5 years old and kind of having these like glimpses in my head of him like spinning on his head on cardboard or in the grass and things like that. And so it's always kind of been a part of my life to a certain degree. But it wasn't until 1995 when I was going to DD Middle School right here in Southeast Houston. And I remember this day specifically because it was a very panicky day and rough day for me. I had a friend that took a 9mm to school. And I remember he saying, hey, they're on to me. He's like, can you do me a favor? Can you hold my pistol? And I was like, damn, man, like, I don't know. Like, I'm in like AP classes. I'm in like advanced placement classes. Like, it's going to be tough for me to do this. But I was like, man, I got you, So, like, the entire day I had a 9mm on me. And so I was just kind of avoiding getting called up to a desk or anywhere. And I remember that day, I was just like, I just want school to end because I want to go home. I want to go home and I want to give this back. It's like, I was familiar with it because I grew up around it. I just didn't fully endorse it all the way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it wasn't something that was a shock or a surprise to me,
But
right?
it's just the responsibility that it's on you.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? When I didn't take it to school, but once it's in my hands, it's like I'm endorsing it. You know what I mean? And it is what it is, and I'll take that and receive it till this day for what it was. And thankfully, nothing ever happened out of it. But this day stands out so big because I remember midday of that day. Friends were asking me like, "Hey, you want to go to the talent show?" It's actually after it goes from like the last 30 minutes of school to like an hour after school, and I'm just like, bro, I'm trying to get home. Like I got this on me, like I'm trying to get home, and they were like, man, no, you should go. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be let's all hang out, whatever. It's gonna be girls, and so I was like, I bet. So it was like it was like exactly. It was like a shiny object that was like, and then I kind of made like this negotiation agreement or whatever with my boys at the time, where I was just like, look, I'll go under this condition. I'll go as if we sit all the way at the back of the theater, because if I need to dip out, I'm gone. I'm gonna dip out, and I don't plan to stay for the whole thing. So as soon as the bell rings, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I ended up staying for the entire thing. I don't know why. It seemed comfortable. Nobody was messing with us. Still had it on me. I wasn't really tripping, like. But it was towards the end of that talent show where it kind of something really special happened. And I remember at the time, these guys, like, first of all, the entire theater goes like pitch black. And all these kind of like strobe lights and like black lights come on. And then I see guys like walking on their hands and spinning on their hands and on their backs and on their heads. And I was just like, what in the world is, going on here, And I was, again, it brought me back to those kind of those kiddie moments of like, I was a kid, but to like when I was 4 or 5 years old, and I was like, man, I remember this. And so what tripped me out the most is that the people that were on stage, they were from my original neighborhood, were from Manchester. And so I was just like, bro, how come y'all don't tell me y'all have done this? You know what I mean? And this was after the show, because I was already hooked. And I remember I talked to them after the show, ended up getting out of the school safe or whatever. Nothing ever happened, but I talked to them, and I was a little like hurt and pissed off at the same time. I'm like, how come y'all don't tell me I break? And they were like, man, because at first they were like, break, what's that? And they were like, the dancing you guys were doing. And they were like, oh, it's techno. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's breaking. It's breakdancing,
Yeah.
They were like, no, it's techno. And I was like, look, I don't give a damn what it is. I want a techno. You know what I mean?
I want a techno with you.
Yeah, I want to do this. And then they were like, well, we just didn't want anybody to make fun of us because, we're from the neighborhood. We didn't want anybody to call us names or whatever. And so when they asked us to do this, it was just like, let's do it. And I'm like, man, y'all had everybody standing on y'all's feet. Like, so literally that day, I remember it was like, I want to practice and I want to get down with you guys. And they were like, okay, well, we practice on these days or whatever. So I went home, and at the time I was living in Magnolia, like, on Pasadena Street, like 2 blocks or a block away from Mason Park. And at the time on 75th and Lawndale, there was a fiesta, and then there was a store called Eckerd's, and it was I think it's what Walgreens or CVS is now at the time. And I remember they would always have like these big cardboard boxes in the back. So I literally went home from school, told my mom, hey, I'm gonna go walk to Eckerd's and I'm gonna go pick up some boxes. And she was like, boxes for what? She was like, I want to dance and I want to put them into my backyard. And so I went over there, and I was 11 years old at the time, and I remember just walking blocks and carrying these big old boxes, and I get them, and then I just lay them and I just tape them down, and kind of the rest is history. I just kind of started getting down in the backyard, not knowing what I was doing, no direction, but I guess the direction that felt really good was that I guess it was like a special thing that was needed for my life, because it allowed me to say a lot without saying anything. So a lot of the emotions and the dilemmas that I was dealing with internally or externally were kind of getting released through an aggression of like, I want this so bad. I want this so bad. I want to get this so like down right now. Yeah. So there was a sense of urgency that I was feeling as a kid, and I was exploring it. And I think that's the reason why I kind of elevated so quickly, because there was a lot that I had to say, or that was bottled up inside, and I said it through dancing, and I said it through this commitment to this new art form or sport or whatever anybody wants to call it, and it allowed me to kind of excel. So within like 3 months, all the guys that I started with, they were like, bro, you're getting better than us. Like, what's going on?
But you were practicing every day.
And I was like, it's my commitment and loyalty to this thing. I'd get schoolwork done. So my mom would, as soon as I'd get home, my mom would ask me, if my homework was done. I was like, it's done. I'm gonna go to the back, and I would be there till the sun goes down. And then when things started getting hot, I started like moving things inside. So I started moving my mom's living room furniture inside, and she'd yell at me, or if I'd do it in my room and move my bedroom set aside, and then I just start kind of getting down, and it became a staple, and now everybody wanted to come to my house to be a part of that entire movement and the influence and that commitment, and so there's a big saying, it's like, surround yourself with people that are doing it, kind of bigger or better than you. And I think that people caught on to that early with me because I wanted it more than anybody. Yeah. And I think that's why I was able to achieve a lot early on. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. Like, I feel like even as a kid, I always think that as if you're a young kid and you're doing great in school, that's already a big challenge. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's already preparing your mentality, your mind to, like, you got to get your homework done. You got to get your schoolwork done to have good grades. Like, that's your reward,
Yeah.
So once you're able to, catch on that mentality and take it to something you like, and there's just no stopping you there,
Yeah, that I think, everything, success equates to results, right? And so it's like, if you want to feel successful, and success doesn't always mean like having more money or having more this. It just means you have a positive result. That's what success is, right? Having a positive result. And I just wanted positive results with everything that I did, because I didn't want to do, excuse my language, but I didn't want to do anything half-ass. I wanted to do, if I got into something, I wanted to execute. And I knew that execution equates to positive result. And so anything that I ever got myself into was always about having positive results.
But who showed you that? That's my question. Like, who?
No one.
Okay.
So no one. Okay, I'll take that back. I saw it through people. I didn't see it through, or I didn't hear it through people telling me certain things. My parents were always my biggest role models and the most positive people in my life. So I learned a lot by watching them, but I also learned a lot by watching all the mistakes that people were doing. And I just associated myself to and compared myself to those things that were happening, right? It was kind of a simple math. You do something bad, you're responsible for whatever is bad. You do something good, you receive something good. And it was a very black and white mathematical message for me. So it was like, if I do that, I'm going to end up there. But if I do this, I'm going to get this. And I always wanted that positive result. So I disassociated myself with a lot of things that were going on in the neighborhood. And people honestly respected me for it, because I was doing something extremely different, where everybody was kind of following the crowd and kind of doing what they needed to do. Now, at the same time, I'll kind of say this publicly on blast, it didn't make me like a punk or something that I was kind of walking away from, because I grew up in an area where you kind of had to have your guard up the entire time.
Yeah.
And it was just something that I was like, I just don't need to associate myself with that. And I know that if something ever went down, I know who to call. I know who got my back. And if people are my family or are my friends and my true crew or community, they'll be there. Yeah. And I just kind of followed that and really believed that. Whether people were making me feel that or not, I believed it first.
Yeah.
I believed it first. And that allowed me to honestly just follow my dream. So no one really taught me it. I just saw it. I saw it. And I always use this kind of example too, because I also grew up in church. Like, my parents were pastors and stuff like that. And so I grew up in church, and that's probably hence why you hear a lot of the positive kind of spiritual, words and things that I say. But even in church, it's like there was a point where I didn't want to go anymore, because, and I'll use this kind of analogy. It's like I went to church kind of every day of my life as a kid, but you start to hear the same sermon, and everyone's telling you, live good, live good, live good. And it's just like, bro, I see you outside of these walls, you're not living good. And I would see that. So I took kind of this idea and concept that I had in my head. It's just like where I wanted to stop hearing sermons. I wanted to start seeing sermons, and when I started to see sermons and I started to see things and seeing people apply what they said, I'm like, your word is bond. That's value. That's what I want to do. So if I ever gave anybody my word, you best believe it was going to happen. So anything that I ever said that I was going to do, I made sure I made it happen, regardless of whether it took me 5-10 years or there was a struggle or obstacles that I kind of had to jump through or go through. I made sure that it happened, because I wanted to make sure that, when you give somebody something and you give them your word, you kind of have to follow through with it at all costs. Yeah. And I just kind of learned that through example, right? So people were leading by example, teaching me certain things that allowed me to kind of just apply to basic principles of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Well,
Do you wanna?
yeah. Well, with that being said, we're gonna go on a quick break, guys,
Sure.
and we'll be back.
Sir.
Cool.
And we are back. You know, earlier when you said that you didn't care to be the one that didn't follow the crowd or whatever. You know, when me and him started dating, I think that's what caught my eye because I knew the group of guys, right? Like in our high school, whatever. Because I never wanted to date somebody from our high school. And because we went to where are you?
It's funny. Go ahead.
The East. We went to East Early on Navigation.
Okay.
You know,
It's
what I'm
like a
talking
newer,
about?
newer
It
school.
was newer like back then. Right?
Yeah, it's newer, but I'm familiar.
Yeah. So it's such a small high school, and I never wanted to date somebody from there because it was so small, right? So whenever me and him started talking, it did catch my eye that he was like, his friends were like over there partying and whatnot, and he was just like not focused on that, you know.
Gotcha.
And then we got together, and you know, like all our friends would go out, and he would be just like working on designs at home, you know. And he was like, he would tell me, he's like, I'm a homebody, and I'm like, I like that. Do what you have to do. You
That's
know?
100% me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whenever you were saying that you're like this way, and I'm like, man, that's how he is. Like he's always like, his friends will text him. Sometimes they don't even invite him anymore because he's like, you never show up, and he's like, it's because I'm always working, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
Yeah,
just
and then-
wanted to throw that out there. 'Cause
Yeah.
I don't get
mean-
invited anywhere, by the way. Well, there's that, right? Like I don't party. Like I've
Yeah.
never drank or smoked
Well-
my entire life, or I've never done any of that. But like it's also like there's a kind of a stigma, like you know, you're too busy. You know.
Yeah.
But
So
what,
how do you deal with that? Oh, sorry. What were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say, like, how did you, if you were surrounded by stuff like that, you know, growing up, what made you like, kind of like not, other than breaking, like, what made you not lead that way? Because it's like,
See.
yeah, you know, for me, because I've done this stuff, like, you know, like,
Yeah.
shit, like growing up, you know, I kind of got into it a little bit, but then I never fully immersed myself in that world.
Yeah.
And now I'm just, you know.
Yeah, I think for me, what it was again seeing the results of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people, you know, from my neighborhood or you know my circle did not have a lot of results. It was the same thing. It was always struggle. That was the only thing that I saw. And I don't mean to say that from a negative standpoint and disrespect a lot of people, because a lot of people did eventually grow up out of that. But early on, you know, I saw struggle. I saw struggle even within my own family. I saw struggle within my own friends. And I didn't want to struggle. I didn't want to do that. And I felt like the more you got involved in something that caused struggle, it was just going to be more struggle.
Yeah.
So the only way to disassociate yourself with that was to be like, do opposite of that. I didn't know what opposite was, but it was just like, do opposite of that.
Just
Whatever.
don't do that.
Just
right?
don't do that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Whatever opposite is, you go find it.
So how did you deal with the whole like because I feel like it's happened to me where as I'm growing up, I would see, like you said, like examples that I didn't want to do.
Sure.
So then I would tell myself, well, I don't want that, you know. And sometimes I would express it that I didn't want that, and
Yeah.
I would get like bad
Backlash.
yeah, like, whoa, you think you're better than me?
Yeah.
No, it's like, I don't think I'm better than you, but you
I do
should-
think I'm better than you, like that. I mean, I feel
No,
like you could have
but
that
to me-
mentality, though.
But
like,
to me, no, I didn't have that mentality. To me, it
pero
was
no,
more
no de
like,
malicia.
no,
like,
yeah,
kinda
but
like,
to me, it was more like, no, whenever they told me, you think you're better than me? I was like, no, I don't think I'm better than you, but you should want better for me.
Yeah.
You know?
And you should want better for yourself.
Yeah, right?
Like
so
to them.
So how were you, did you get that whenever you were growing up?
I think I did receive some for sure. I wouldn't receive it a lot. I think it's more because people still had like a respect for me, and it was hard for like some of my close friends to really tell me that, which also led me to also try to find new circles, because I also wanted people to tell me that I'm doing wrong and that I want or that I'm doing good.
Yeah.
But all I heard was like, you're doing good, you're doing good. And even when I was surrounded by a circle that was telling me that all I kept doing was doing good, I went to go find a new circle because I wanted to know what I'm doing wrong. Because I know everything I'm doing is not dope, good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I also need to know what I'm doing wrong. So I did receive a lot of that, and I just kind of took it in for what it was. And I wasn't really expressive at the time, so I wouldn't say a lot back. I was just a doer.
Yeah.
You gave me one no, I gave you 100 yeses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then I just kind of showcased that repeatedly over and over and over again. So if you felt some type of way, cool.
Yeah. Do you consider yourself a yes man? That's what they're called, right?
A yes man. No, a yes man is like somebody that just says like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely not.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
no.
Yeah. I feel like people don't.
That's a strong hell no. I'm not a yes man. No.
People tend to like not come to me and Evelyn for anymore for like opinions, because we tell them like nah, like a lot, or if something doesn't look good, or if they're not doing what we think is like the best for them or whatever, we tell them, you know.
Yeah.
And they seem to like, and that's including like my family and stuff, and they're just like, right? Like they used to come to us for
a lot of stuff.
For a lot of stuff, and we'd give them what they don't want to hear.
Sure.
And from there, yeah,
and that's the best way to be, you know.
Yeah.
I literally had this conversation last night with Jesse, Lucia's husband.
Okay.
He was at my house last night. We were kind of hanging out, and we were having that conversation. It's like, you know, if there was something that we wanted to share or tell somebody, and we were kind of going deep into something, I would tell you. I was like, I'd rather tell you how I feel about something, and it was nothing towards him. We were just generally speaking about different things that happen within our communities, right? So I was telling him, I was like, I'd rather like tell you straight up and you be mad at me for 6 weeks than for me to bottle it up for 6 weeks, and then when you finally hear it from me, it leads to something else.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? So it's like, I'd rather tell you and be honest, and if you take it a certain way, then it's probably true, or it's affecting you in a way that maybe you have something back to say to me, but at least there's an exchange of honesty.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, we're adults. We should be able to communicate what you don't like and what you like in a way where you are also expressing it in a respectful way, you know?
Right.
Because again, we're adults. Like, we should have these conversations, right? Like, so, but of course, there's adults that don't act like adults, so then those conversations don't go the way
That's
we want
90% of adults.
So going into the conversation that we were having off camera regarding the
like sponsorship and business and marketing and
so
all that.
How did you even go into you're doing the breaking for expressive, like you want to express yourself, your feelings. How did you go into the mindset of like, man, this can make me money, this is gonna be a business for me?
Well, first it was when people started inviting me places, there was already value placed on me, right? So it's like, if people want to see me somewhere, why wouldn't more people want to see me somewhere else, right? So I kind of took that value in, not to blow up my head, but to teach me lessons. And so I was very grateful for every opportunity. One thing that you can ask anybody in the breaking world, they'll always tell you, Moy's always been the same since like the very beginning. Priorities change as you get older, right? Because you have families or businesses or different things, right? So you can become a little bit more selective. And then from there, people can create different narratives. But at the same time, for my personality and character, I've always been the same person. So anytime anybody offered me an opportunity and I was available, I was there. And that's why I said there's kind of a stigma of like, I'm always too busy. It's like when you guys reached out to me, it's like, hey, would you guys be doing it? I say, oh yeah, cool, this is the date. It was quick, like, and it's more of like that. And so I think for me, it was just finding the value that people were placing on me and really just kind of grabbing it and feeling grateful for it. And then that led me to believe, it's like, man, if people around the world can place a significant value on me, why can't other people, like why can't companies or other people that are involved in businesses place more value on me? Because I can be a brand ambassador for them, I can be an influencer for them. And I picked this up like really, really early on. So actually one of my first sponsors in the late 90s was a brand called Tribal Gear. And Tribal Gear was a kind of a streetwear brand that was based out of San Diego. Their headquarters in San Diego. They're still very prominent today, kind of in the kind of underground street style scene, and they had stores and really was massive in Asia, in which why I started touring Asia like really early.
That is so crazy.
Yeah, so that was like one of my first sponsors, and so they would fly me out, they would pay me to rock the gear and things like that. So to kind of give you some color behind that, like tribal gear was really massive in the breaking scene early on. So if you were sponsored by Tribal, or if you were on the Tribal team, you were like a superstar. Like you were like, how do I get there? And you know, like recently I came back from Japan, and when I was in Japan, that was my 29th time in Japan. Okay. And so to give you color behind that, I would say about half of those times that I was in Japan was through Tribal gear in my early 2000s. So we were constantly doing things out there. So I'm very thankful and grateful for all the opportunities that they gave me, because they also led me to believe that there is value in brands and sponsorships like coming my way. And so and the biggest advice I can give in terms of like sponsorships and kind of brand opportunities is most people do not receive sponsorship opportunities because they're only looking for the dollar. I never looked for the dollar. I looked for the relationship. And that's extremely important that I want everybody to listen to. When you look for the dollar, you'll only receive the dollar. But if you look for the relationship, you're looking for a marriage, right? You're looking for somebody that's going to be there to support you the entire way, whether things get tough, through thick and thin, through sickness and health or whatever. You want a partnership. You don't want a sponsorship, and Tribal gear taught me that early. Building with other brands taught me more. Building with Monster Energy taught me way more, so it was like, I was never looking for the dollar. I was always looking for the relationship. And if I can build a relationship, I will have an everlasting relationship. And the only person that can screw up that sponsorship, partnership, or quote unquote relationship was me. So every time I had a year contractually involved with somebody, I would look at it like it's my last one, because I didn't want it to end. And I wanted to give it everything that I can to make sure that I was going above and beyond for the brand that can find value in some kid from the hood that just wants to just get down and spin on their head.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like, yeah, man, that's amazing. Like, that's pretty crazy. Yeah. But like, my thought is like, okay, when people think of a sponsorship, right? Like, let's take Monster. The average kid would probably be like, oh, I want to be sponsored by Monster because I want energy drinks, right? Yeah. But like, what all have they been able to do for you? Like, what comes with that? Like, as far as like okay, like, we're gonna help you build this and stuff, instead of just like, oh, here's some drinks, what I mean? Like,
so man, Monster has done so much for me, and I'm very thankful for that relationship. I'll summarize the entire get down, but they, outside of drinks and all the Monster gear I want, they supply me with a monthly salary to be a brand ambassador, athlete, influencer for them. They support our events. They sponsor our events. We do corporate activations that in our agreement we call retail hits, or retailtainment, which is essentially entertainment for retailers. So if they got a new product that they're launching at like a festival, or something that they're going to be sampling, like where they're activating and bringing more that energy to those activations, to
breaking community to their events.
Not necessarily breaking community, just the engagement and entertainment of something fresh and spontaneous. And so I helped create a program alongside with Monster to be able to bring more of that engaging and entertaining opportunities to festivals, corporate launches, like product launches and things like that. So there is a significant dollar amounts that kind of go into those activations, and then there is brand collabs. Like we'll do certain collabs with, whether it's like a new dance floor that's branded, or some new gear that's collabed with Break Free, or there's just so many different opportunities that allowed us to really leverage the relationship and do more. Because when you attach a big face value to what you are doing, people believe in you more, because they know that you got something. So regardless of all the dollars, that's what I cared about the most. What I cared about the most is for me to protect that we have this multi-billion-dollar company that believes in something that honestly is still street level. And if they can see street level and find value in it, I need to find more value in the relationship. And so, they provide a lot. They provide a lot of support, whether it's financially, honestly, mentally. Just always got my back when even if I was going through some of my toughest times, like through, like in 2016, I lost my dad. In 2017, I lost my mom, and through all those times, they were always there for me, like whether I wanted to do certain activations or not. They never questioned anything. They always paid me. They always did my, when my parents passed away, they sent boatloads of flowers. And I mean, it's just, the relationship has been just spectacular all the way around. But it wasn't because I treated it as a sponsorship. I treated it as a relationship, as a partnership. And so they really had our back. And so, I said a lot, but to answer your question is, man, they support everything that I do. And one of the biggest things is they've allowed me to bring people into my circle that were not associated to the company. People like June the Barber.
Shout out June.
Yeah, people like June the Barber. I introduced June and Monster together, and then now June has created an empire doing whatever he's doing. But they didn't have to believe in me. They didn't have to believe in my circle, but they knew that the way that I rolled and the way that I walked, they know that I don't mess around, and I don't just surround myself with anybody.
Yeah.
So when they saw June and his talent, it was like game over. My boy Color, who's also my tattoo artist, but he also is one of the like OGs in the graffiti world here in Houston. He's also now a sponsored, graffiti writer and tattoo artist for Monster Energy. If I saw opportunities in certain areas to a certain degree, I would always look out for the best interest of the brand, but not for me. It's not like I get anything extra out of these. I just wanted the best for the brand to build the culture at Monster that I feel like we're lacking. Yeah. So if you guys are familiar with like the sneaker world, 2J's, who runs Urban, it was the lead guy for Urban Necessities. I remember I was watching a YouTube clip on him, and I saw him drinking a Monster. And I kind of reached out to him and was like, hey man, like I'm a fan of sneakers, I'm a fan of you, but I have a strong influence at Monster. I think this is such a good connection for you. So I'm the one that kind of helped carve out that relationship.
That's what I was gonna ask too. Yeah. So you're okay helping people connect.
Oh, you have to help people.
Right.
You have to help people. You can't look at it like people are like, if I give you my resources or my connections, like they're gonna take from you. If you are looking at it that, you're looking at it the wrong way.
No, yeah.
Because you're not truly believing in what you have. There's no one that's gonna take what I have.
Yeah, because we're big on that. So we're like super big. So like people are like, what do you have to start a podcast? So we created on Amazon like a starter kit.
Sure.
And we're like, this is what we have. This is we still have what we started with. This is what we have, because we have the mentality where it's just like, do it. Go for it. Be your own boss. Do what you love,
100%.
And if you do it better, it's just because you're working harder, at the end of the day.
For sure.
So
we're not trying to gatekeep or none of that, because it's like, just like you said, like you have to be confident in what you have. So it's like, if somebody's gonna outdo me with the stuff, with the information I give them, then that only means that I'm doing less.
Congratulations. You killed it.
Yeah, right?
No, seriously, like that's the way I look at it. I look at it, everything I do, because at the end of the day, Evelin, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, there will never be a better Rollie and a better Evelin. People can be, it's the honest truth. No one can ever be a better Moy. People will try, but I can only be a better Moy, and you guys can be only a better Rollie and a better Evelin. No one can. They can try to match that. They can try to place the same value that you guys have, but no one will ever be better than that, because you guys are built to be who you guys are. And the problem why people don't stand out in the influencer world or in the sponsorship world is because people are trying to be other people, and there's no real value in that. It's fake value. So that's something that that's why I share everything that I have, because the realest more you're ever going to get is you coming to me. not trying to get somebody else that's trying to be like me.
Yeah. Honestly, I'm surprised that that we were able to book you so that you were able to give us a date like right away. Like,
in a way it was kind of like perfect because you're leaving again, right?
Yeah. I'm going to Portugal at the end of the month.
So we had like this spot, like a few spots open, right? And it was like,
I mean, and if not, we would have done like because like we're also big on like, this is our podcast, we do it our way, there's no rules to it, you know. And so we have our son, so we just have to get a babysitter, you know what I mean?
No, trust me, I know exactly what it means.
So then it's like, if you would have picked a date that I try to give you, because I'm the one that organizes the dates, right? So I try to give you whatever I knew I was going to be able to get a babysitter for, especially because after we had talked to June and he's like, yeah, y'all can record here. And then we talked to you about it. I was like, all right, it's not going to be, you know, where we normally record. So I have to get to take him, you know?
Sure.
And so then I was like, if he picks a date or a time that it's already taken, like, we're just going to have to like move something, make it happen, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, it's just like you said earlier, it's like you have to want it. So you were already on our list, you know, but people would throw your name out there, you know. And I was like, man, it's because he's so like, he's big in that like that community, you know. And I'm like, it'd be good to have him. And then I had sat down with Jesse and Lucia, so shout out to Jesse and Lucia. And Jesse had just said, man, y'all need to get Moy. Literally, he told me that, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. And then literally the next day we booked you.
Oh, cool.
And then we saw him that Sunday, and I'm like, dude, we booked him. Like, and he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah, right. It was so funny.
Yeah, you know, man, it's all love. Like any opportunity I get, like whether it's small, medium, big, however you look at it. I look at, honestly, as crazy as it sounds, I look at every opportunity as the same. Anytime I get the chance to speak or share anything that I've ever been through, it's whether one person is listening or a million people are listening, it doesn't matter to me. The story is the same, and it's as real as it gets. So I'm very thankful, again, for every opportunity. And if there's an opportunity to share and I'm available, man, let's do it. You know, I don't need anything.
Do you like honestly, if you saw that we weren't like as serious, would you have come on the podcast?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
So?
Absolutely. But I do see that you guys are you know, you guys carry yourselves well, and you guys are doing awesome. People have hit me up in the past, but it's not essentially how big or how small a podcast is.
Yeah.
It's the way people communicate, right? So I've had people hit me up to like, hey, do this, but it's just like, hey, bro, can you do this?
Yeah.
No. You know what I mean? No. But it's everything is an approach. If you could find the right approach to things, people will treat you better. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if you're gonna treat me like everybody else, like, nah, man. Like, and what I mean by that is like, don't treat me like I'm your boy, because I don't know you like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because even if I didn't know anybody, and whether they're famous or they're not famous or anything like that, I'm a respecter of persons. I respect people, their time, who they are. Whether, you know, they're nobodies, or when I say that, it's just like whether they're like influencers or not influencers. Like I just respect people, and I always was taught to communicate with people the exact same way. Like, hey, hello, how are you? You know, may I ask, you know, where do you come from? And, you know, it was always approach. And I've had people hit me up and he's like, you know, hey bro, I see what you're doing. You're killing it. Are you down for a podcast? Like, no, man. Like, no, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like just because you're boys to like my people, like, no, I'm not. But if you come in differently, then yes. So it's not about how big or how small. For me, it's always been about approach. I'm really big on that, you know, and communication is everything. If you find a way to communicate what you want, you will get what you want. But if you're not specific to how you want to be also treated in the process, you're gonna get what you don't want to feel or hear. You know what I'm saying? Because it'll pour right back.
No, I think to us too, like you said, communication is key in everything, in every aspects of your life. And if you're married, you know, communication is key. Yeah. If you want to do business, communicate. So that's why I texted you like, hey, we're gonna go drop off our son. We're dropping him off. We're on our way.
No,
like,
it's
you
all
know?
good. Yeah.
Because I was like, I knew I didn't want to show up here and then like get here at 10 and then have to set up, you know, but We got here like 10 minutes early.
Yeah, but yeah, because it's we don't bring the stuff around like that, you know.
Yeah,
usually people go to where we're at. So
yeah.
But I was gonna talk about when it comes down to like communicating and stuff like that. I was like, I want to. Well, I was gonna say that like your podcast was gonna end up happening regardless because we had so many people surrounding you, like cool. Guest wise, you know, and then we're meeting people that just know you, and I just felt like it was gonna come full circle at some point, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna have which we kind of want to talk to you about it. We're gonna have like our 100 episodes like
dope,
like event here. Cool. And so yesterday we were talking to one of my cousin. She was one of the guests, right? And she told me, so she was like, oh, so what's the big thing about the event? Like, what's the grand finale, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, well, essentially it's just for everybody to meet each other, you know, and just link up,
yeah,
you know?
And
like,
it's also like,
that's awesome.
It's not like a way of like, because we'll have merch, because she said, basically like, how are y'all making money, you know? And we're like, well, we're really not, you know. It's just, we'll just have merch, and if it sells, it sells, right? But and then vendors, literally maybe like 10, because I don't want to be like too worried about it, you know,
overcrowded or whatever.
But at the end of the day, we wanted to throw the 100th episode event more of like a thank you to everybody that joined us as a guest. And like man, here this is the spot where y'all can network, you know, because we've had people like mention you, and we've had people mention other guests and June, you know. So like if y'all were like, people pull up, it's like a great opportunity. It's like a great networking, you know, through our podcast.
Yeah, it's like a networking social mixer, but a celebration of all the work that you guys have done.
And it's like a big, you know, big episode, 100 episodes for this and much more. And then like a big thank you to the guests for even taking the time out of like their day just to come record and sit down and talk to us, you know, at the end of the day. So
yeah, you want to go? No.
Yeah, we're going to go on a quick break, guys, and we'll be back.
Yes, sir.
And we are back. So going into your business side, you know, tell us about Break Free. How did that even start?
Yeah, so essentially first Break Free was an idea it was a message. It was just a concept that I wanted to play with, like that you can take what you love and use it to explore this new side of you. And that was where the idea of the concept of like Break Free, just like be free in whatever it is that you love to do, and let people kind of capture the emotions that you're trying to showcase with your art or with your sport or what your talent, whatever your talent is. So in 2007, I started shooting like little YouTube clips, and it was just like me getting down outside or in garages or whatever, and I just kind of put it together, and then I'll just end it with it just say Break Free, you know, and it was just like very subtle, you know what I mean, like very subtle. And then I started with that same concept. I started to kind of use the idea of like escaping. Like, how do I escape? Because when you break free, you're escaping from something, right? And I said, what am I doing in the process? I'm creating. So that's where the idea of create your escape came in, where it was like you got to create your escape, right? And so it's and I would use all my knowledge and all my creativity to find this new freedom. And so I would create my escape, and it was like finding a new Moy or finding a new me, in a way of just being able to use what I love to enter a new dimension or a new world that just made me feel at peace. And so everything that I've ever gone through, I would just create my escape in the process. And that's kind of where those kind of two philosophies come from. And then through that time, I remember I was just trying to figure out how to continue to promote that. So we started to do events, and I've partnered with different people in the process of doing events to kind of promote the concept. And then in 2011, I wanted to do something completely different. I wanted to create a center where people can align themselves with other people that are looking to find a way to create their escape. And so I started Break Free. And Break Free was just an idea of like bringing people together, building a community of like, you know, breakers, DJs, MCs, graffiti writers, anything that was involved in hip hop culture, to where they can have a safe and structured environment and an inspiring environment to where they can surround themselves with people doing what they love to do. Didn't know that it was going to become a business, or that I was going to take it to just different levels. It was just more, I wanted to build a community. And then in that process, I started to learn more about like, man, I just picked up all this new overhead. I have all this, you know, like, how am I going to pay this? I was like, well, we should do classes.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. I'm like, how did you even, like, it didn't go as a business? Like, were you just paying for it out of pocket?
Oh, yeah. I paid for a lot out of pocket. Yeah. And then, because at first it was like, I was doing pretty good because I was, you know, involved in the entertainment world. And I was blessed to do, like, a lot of commercials and movies and things like that. So I had made pretty good money for where I come from and what I was doing at the time, you know. So I remember, to go back a little bit, I was living in LA. I lived in LA for 5 years. Then during that time period, like, I remember within, like, my first year was kind of like the roughest year. And then the second year, within like the first 6 months of my second year, I did a commercial for JCPenney, for K-Swiss, McDonald's, T-Mobile. And then I did Step Up 3D, and I started doing like a lot of different work. And then I remember I was kind of making more money than I've ever made in my life doing what I love to do. And so at the time, my wife and I had bought our first house here in Southeast Houston in 2006, which was the year we got married. And in 2007 is when we moved to LA. So when we started to lease that house out while we were gone. And I remember whenever we were living in LA, and she's really the one that really motivated me to, like, you should go out there, you should do this and you should do that. I got you, you know. And she was working in the medical field. So she was like always like my backbone of like, hey, go out there and pursue your dream, you know what I mean? And so I was like, all right, I'll do it if you want me to do it, but it's not something that I'm really looking for, because I was already traveling around the world and I was happy with that. And I remember, you know, we made a bit of money and we were like, man, I want to go back home, start a family and do all that stuff, right? So came back home, had some money saved, and, you know, started to kind of remodel the house that we had. We moved back in. And I remember saying, you know, I want to start something. I just don't know what it was. And you know, fast forward, my son was 6 months. And I started Break Free. She thought I was crazy with that, because like it was like the very little money that we had. Like I put it I started Break Free with $5,000, you know, and it's like we kind of put everything into that. And you know, my sister, my mom, my dad, everybody helped in even trying to raise a little bit more money into kind of like helping me support this dream. Right, had friends come in and help lay carpet tiles or tile to kind of get the whole get down going. And so I'm very thankful for everybody that helped do that. But it was that moment where I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm just kind of following something that I wanted to achieve as a kid. I've always had the vision of creating kind of a dream center for people like myself. If you heard my story early on, everything that I did outside of Mason Park that I had opened their doors, everywhere we went, we got kicked out of, or we got yelled at for doing what we do. I wanted to create an environment where nobody can get kicked out of or yelled at, unless you did something just kind of like you needed to get kicked out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And you know, in that process, I did it more from kind of a spiritual and emotional standpoint, that I wanted to achieve something. I didn't know everything that came with it. I had an idea of it, and so, you know, I was kind of funding it, or we were kind of raising money through events and stuff like that to kind of keep it open. After a while, like I would say the first year was kind of like booming, of like people showing up and being a part of the community and stuff like that. After a while, people were just like not appreciating it so much. So that's when I was like, we got to do classes, because the people that we're building this for, they're not here long term. They come and they go. And I think that Break Free is built for people that want to learn about the culture and want to learn about the community. And essentially that's when Break Free started to become a business, where it's like, we'll do classes, and rather than focusing on the current generations, let's build new generations. Let's teach them about hip hop culture. Let's teach them, because if hip hop can do what it did for me, it can be done for other people. You just kind of got to teach them the journey. And so that was the business model. Let's teach them the journey that, hey, if hip hop took me around the world and it took me to movies and it put me in commercials, and it can do the same for you or more, right?
Yeah.
That was something that we started to kind of push as a business model to the kids. And so we started to open up classes in breaking, DJing, graffiti art, and MCing. And, I would say through like 2013 through like 2016, we started kind of building out that school process. And in 2017 is when I really saw like a big shift in the business, to where it's like, you went from like 30, 40 kids to like, 100 kids that wanted to be in the program.
Dang.
And then I remember when we got to like 100, and I told Jeremy, who's the president of the company today, I told him, I said, hey man, we can do this again. And he was like, let's do it. And so then we opened up another location. And then within 6 months, that location went from like 0 to 100 kids as well in 6 months, where before it took me years to get to 100 kids, because I was learning the process. And from that vision, that allowed me to be like, oh, I can scale this business to new levels that we've never even thought before, where it was like we were always focused on pouring back and giving to the community, but the community wasn't essentially giving us the support that we needed to find. It's not that we were looking for financial support, but moral and just showing up support does a lot for the significant growth of something, right?
Yeah.
It's like people say you got to show up. It's true, you got to show up.
Which, did you expect that? Because it's kind of normal, right?
It is. It's absolutely normal. And, I've always had a big heart for people. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't want to believe what I was seeing, because I always gave everybody the benefit of the doubt, which essentially always came back and bit me in the ass, because I was always giving too many people the courtesy of like, oh, it'll turn around. It'll turn around. It'll turn around. It'll turn around. Mm-hmm. And it never turned around. I had to be the one to say, we're going to turn this around. Yeah. And I never did that. So I lost a lot of time and years of wishful thinking. And wishful thinking is something that really kills a lot of people's dreams, because you hope and you dream and you hope and you dream and you hope and you dream, but you're hoping and dreaming about the wrong thing. There's realities to our dreams, and you got to trust the realities. Your wishful thinking is not always going to help you accomplish what you're looking for. It'll put you in a very dangerous state of saying, I hope to get here one day. 30 years later, you're still hoping to get there one day. You got to be, from a business standpoint, you got to be able to know what you're doing wrong, and then you got to change that, right? And what I was doing wrong is I was just in wishful thinking a lot. I was just giving everybody the benefit of the doubt. So to go back to the story, is in 2017 we saw a spike. 2018 we opened up the new location. There was another spike. And then it was just like a ripple effect. And then we kind of started taking that process and really just started to scale it up, opening, more locations and also building out more of the internal infrastructure of Break Free, of basically building out departments, right? Okay, well, now we have a entertainment department, and now we have the educational department, and now we have the management department, where we manage influencers and athletes and things like that through Monster Energy. And then there's other departments that we were carving out. And I learned that, honestly, surrounding myself with people at Monster. I saw how Monster kind of did their things, and everything was in departments. And if I ever wanted to be that big, I can never be this small. And so I had to think bigger. So I invested into more people. As we started to make more money, it's not like we were taking in more money to the pocket. To be very, very frank and very honest, I didn't, Break Free started in 2011. I didn't take my first check until 2020, until the COVID year. That was the first time I took a check from Break Free as a salary to myself. Now, other people were receiving something, even if it was at smaller levels. But 2020 was the first time I ever paid myself through my business, because I was always injecting capital through everything that I was doing on my side hustle, whether it's traveling or sponsorships and stuff like that. I was taking that capital and pouring it back into my business, because I wanted to invest in people, because I knew if I invested in more teams, the company would grow more. But if I invest in just myself, it will always just be me and Break Free. And I didn't want it to be about me and Break Free. I wanted it to be bigger. I wanted to create more opportunities, more job opportunities for everybody else, because it stems from all those people that ever told me, once you get a real job, you're never going to make money off dancing. So I wanted to create a platform that created, job opportunities for dancers, so man, they will never have to do that.
That's really crazy, because the you saying like if you take from that and just pour it into yourself, like you're only gonna be that big, so if pouring it back into the business does grow it,
yeah, because if I'm pouring, not to cut you off, but if I pour it into me, I'm just supporting my hobby and my passion.
Yeah.
But if I pour it into my business now can pay other people like a business.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? And so that was something that I really learned in that process. It's like if I just keep taking more from me, it's like, okay, I'm good. But it starts from me, but it was never, the vision and the story of Break Free was never essentially built to promote my story or my vision. It was to promote the message of like, we can take what we love and teach it to the masses and create opportunities for the masses.
Yeah.
And that's what we've been doing.
I'm sorry. No, I was gonna say, would you agree that once people see Break Free and they don't know who owns it or whatever, like, is that kind of like a success thing? Like, you're like, I know it's successful because people don't even know that I'm associated with Break Free.
I love it. I love that. And I think the people that do know, they just know because of historical data. They'll go back and research, and then they'll find out who really owns it. But early on, I adapted a model internally with my team where it was like, I didn't want to be promoted so much. I didn't want to be promoted. Every time the news came in and wanted to do a story with us, I never wanted to do it. Like, I did some, but I never wanted to do it because I wanted Break Free to have organic growth, and I didn't want it to be like, oh, it's because of Moy did all these things or because of Moy. No, I want to know because of the kids and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Look how talented they are. Look at what's going on, Like, dude, like I may be the face of something, but I don't believe I'm the most talented one in the room. I think there's a lot of people that have a lot of talent and a lot of value to who I am, which essentially adds a lot of value to the entire company.
Yeah.
So I think that's what helped us, get bigger.
And another thing too that, I don't know if we were off camera when we were talking about the money thing, about the business. So you created Break Free the same way without the mentality of thinking, oh, I'm going to make money off of this.
Yeah.
So then, and it's crazy because you're saying you started it in 2011 and didn't get your first check into 2020. Like,
exactly.
That's just going back to how we were talking about the podcast, that we don't see money, but if we did, then it'll just be a plus because we're enjoying it.
It's great. It's a bonus,
know what I mean? Like, and
but
that's how it was for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, everything was a bonus at this point. But essentially, when you kind of dive in and you immerse yourself into the business, you start to understand that the more you do, the more money is required, the more capital is required, right? So you now, when you take something, and this could be some advice to you guys or to anybody that's listening, but when you take something and you do it, it's kind of like something you love to do. It's there's a level of passion that's behind that, right? And then when you take it to new levels, it's no longer passion, it's obsession. You find obsession and then you go to new levels with that. But in that process of obsession, you have to develop an investor mindset. You cannot just be an entrepreneur and just say, I'm an entrepreneur for the sake of, like, I'm going to put it on my Instagram, bio or whatever. You got to really develop the investor mindset, because when the business needs capital or needs money, you need to put it out of your pocket. Everybody wants to be a boss when it's time, until it's time to cut the check. And one thing is, till this day, I'm always injecting capital into this business because I want it to be bigger than what we've all thought that it could become. And when you have that investor mindset, whether it's through your podcast or your business, and for anybody watching back at home, when you learn to continue to invest in that, it's going to reach new levels, right? It's going to reach new levels. But if you're just solely relying on the time that you put into it, then it's like, yeah, time will get you somewhere, but it takes money to get to new levels. It takes money to get new things in life and all that stuff. So there's a twist and there's a misconception about money, right? So it's in business, and it's like, you shouldn't just necessarily do it for the money. Well, first of all, businesses require money. If businesses do not have capital or finance, they'll essentially die out. So you guys got to find whatever it is that you're passionate or obsessed about, and really find and develop the investor mindset so you can keep injecting capital into that business so it can scale to new levels. And I developed that when I started to see the business grow. So that's why I never took a check, because as I saw it grow, I saw my team grow, and then I saw more opportunities grow. I know somewhere down the line I'll be able to kind of reap some benefits from it, but in the interim, and we're still in the interim of where Break Free is going, I just want to continue to invest in it. I want to continue to invest in it. Man, I'm used to surviving off of $20 a week. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't need a lot. I know how to get my hustle going, and I'm just thankful that I can still inject capital into this business to create new opportunities for a lot of people. Now, I've become more mindful in that process because, you know, I've also injected capital or have invested in a lot of people that I should have been invested in. You know what I mean? And you know, I'm a big people person, and I want to give a lot of people opportunities, but at the same time, if you're taking advantage of my opportunity, I'm not going to do it again. I heard something really great that stood out to me, and it's from Tony Robbins. And because I had a bad habit with this within my business, but because I was always like helping people out and paying people out of courtesy, but they weren't really bringing any significant value to help this business grow, right? So Tony Robbins, something I heard him say was like, it's not the people that you hire, but it's the ones that you fail to fire. You know, so a lot of times you bring in people that you think that are going to be good for the team, and you hold on, and then you get into a wishful thinking that they're going to turn around, but they never turn around, and you fail to fire the people that are hindering your business from growing, or your podcast from growing, or for everybody watching, your brand from growing, you know, whatever it is. So you always put significant value on somebody, but if that person does not put significant value on your company, you're never going to get the significant value that you saw in them, because they need to put significant value in the company. And I started to surround myself with people that started to put significant value on Break Free, not on me, on Break Free. If you can put, maybe not as close as to what I place on the value that I place on Break Free, but if you can get close to it, we're all going to reach new levels, and we're all going to eat different. But if you're only judging me for what you see, what I have, you're here for the wrong reason. You're here for the wrong reason. You got to put significant value into your company, your brand, your podcast, or whatever it is, to be able to achieve those new levels. And that is the hardest thing to be able to train or coach anybody with. And that's why it's like you can't hold on to people for too long. You got to know when to let them go. And it's one of the toughest things to ever do, because, you know, you never want to fire anybody, or you never want to give, or you don't ever want to take away an opportunity from somebody. But if they don't see the opportunity, then it was never an opportunity.
Yeah. Nah, it's because, well, I mean, we're about to start a third segment, right? So, and that we record tonight. So the first episode of the new segment. But the two guests, I mean, the two hosts that we kind of chose, I mean, I'm gonna expect the same like grind that we give to the podcast from them, you know. So like we had a meeting, and we're like, hey, look, like I want to do this like every week. I know, because they're like, oh, we might work on the weekends or whatever, you know. I'm like, that's cool, but but I'm like, okay, but we still wanna just know there's no money coming in yet, but eventually we're gonna grow, and this is gonna be an all together thing, you know, and then we'll see that later down the line. But for now, I just really want y'all to be passionate about it.
And I want to add to that, because earlier when we started the conversation, we started the podcast, I talked about something. I talked about word being your bond and your commitment. So my advice as an entrepreneur to you guys is manage expectation, right? So if you bring in new hosts, you got to be able to manage what your expectations are, not theirs, your expectations, right? And you got to be able to kind of train them in that process, right? So you can't expect them to be who you guys are, you know. There's a line, and I think that you need to give them a line, so you're not let down in the process, because you got to give people time. You know, you guys have been doing this for a minute. They haven't. I'll share this story about Jeremy, who's the president of Break Free Worldwide. Whenever I first reached out to him, he was a kid. You know, he was a kid, and I reached out to him, and he was working for Sprint. And I said, hey, man, I'm starting this new thing. Come work for me, but I don't have anything to offer you. But if you believe and you trust and you know my story, at least from the breaking side at the time, I'm gonna tell you right now, you're never gonna go hungry, because I'll make sure you eat before I eat. And he was like, all right, let's do it. And I was like, all right, bet. And he's been by my side ever since through a bunch of things, you know. He was the first one to get paid through Break Free. He was the first one to do this. And Jeremy has 2 houses right now. He's a sponsored athlete by Monster Energy. He's the president of Break Free Worldwide. And, you know, he's one of the top B-boys in the world. And it was because he believed and he trusted. And being a leader, like you guys are leaders in what you guys are going to create and what you do, they have to also trust the energy, the knowledge, and the experience that you guys bring. And you guys got to have the discernment and the intuition to be able to feel, are these the right people?
Yeah.
It's not just who you think they are the right people. You know what I mean? Because at first it was about, I thought Jeremy was the right person, but I had to kind of learn in the process if he was the right person, and he was.
Yeah.
He was the great person. He was the greatest person for it. You know what I mean? But at the same time, you know, I monitored that. So monitor that, but give them grace. Give them grace in the process, because, you know, it's going to be frustrating that they're not hitting the expectations you have. So manage the expectations and kind of set levels for that. Yeah. Because if you give them such a high level and they don't hit it, it's going to let you guys down.
Yeah.
So whenever we had the meeting with them, our first, and we called it a meeting, right? Because that's what it was. You know?
I want to. This is serious to us, you know. So it's like we call it.
We're treating it as a business, right?
Sure.
So then
you have to.
You have to.
Yeah.
So then, you know how you're talking about the branding earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, so because he's so big on it, like being like our logos on there, our logos are on the corners. You know, we talk about it, and presentation.
Sure.
You know. So then when we talk to them about it, we're like, hey, like. We did tell them, like, this is something that there's just no money in, you know. Obviously, it was more like us telling them, like, you have to believe in our podcast. And they do, you know. That's the reason why we thought about these 2 people, because I already have another host, you know. And when I introduced it to her, I introduced the idea of the new segment. I was like, look, like, this is something I want you to enjoy doing. If you think you are not gonna enjoy, then it's cool, it's not for you. You know. And she does, she's a barber too.
Cool,
and
cool.
So she's stuck around, and she's been my co-host for the second segment, and I used her as an example with the other 2 hosts that we're gonna get, you know. And I was like, look, like, she's not getting any money, but she's here every Monday 6 p.m. at my house. You know, actually last Monday, no, was it this Monday? This Monday. I forgot we were supposed to record. And I was like, I had just showered because I had just gotten off of work. And I was like, I'm going to shower. We're going to go to Target to go get some stuff for school, right? For my son. And then I lie here. It's my door's there. She's at the door. And I'm like, oh, my God, dude, I forgot we were recording. She's like, well, I'm here. Let's record. You know, like, that's what I liked, you know. And I'm like, all right, let me go change and let's go record, you know.
That's good.
And we ended up recording.
That's great. Yeah.
So I think we talked about that with, like, our host. So we're hoping that this third segment is going to be, like, another good segment to add. But with that being said, let's go on a quick break, guys, and we'll be back.
Yeah.
And we are back. So you traveled into so many, like, basically around the world, right? What's like your number 1 spot?
Japan. For anybody listening, you got to go to Japan. You got to go to Tokyo. It's
different.
Man, it is the best place ever. It's just everything, the culture, the discipline, the people, the respect. And then, like, there's so much stuff to do there. Like, you know, the food is amazing, the people are amazing, the environment is amazing, the safety of the country is amazing. You don't have to worry about people stealing from you, jacking you, or, like, it's just such an awesome place. Like, to the point where it's like, I would buy a place there that I can go and travel to a few times a year, just because it's such just everything is beautiful about it. So clean, you know, they treat their country with a ton of respect. And so that would be my number one place in terms of like where I would tell people like you need to go here. You need to experience Japan.
Do you watch anime?
I don't.
No. Because what's that movie called? With the little girl that goes to like the bathhouse. Spirited Away. Like the animation is so nice, you know, and it's like it's all Japan, you know, and the architecture and stuff, and it's very soothing to watch, and it's very it's not like one of those like fighting animes or whatever. It's a comforting movie, and it's like very like it's like elegant and stuff, and I'm just like, I wonder if it's like that over there, you know.
You know what? I was about to say that. It's exactly like that. Like it's very comforting like when you get there because you feel like you don't have nothing to worry about. You know what I mean? And that's comfort. That's what comfort is like you find that place where you put your blanket over you and just like, you know, you want to just kind of just snuggle and cuddle and watch TV or whatever, however you want to look at that. But that's a place of comfort, right? That's a place of safety.
Yeah.
Like I've always felt that traveling to Japan where it's like everybody got my back. I don't have to worry about anybody doing anything to me. And I know that I can have a good time here. And so it's just an awesome place. And, you know, I was very fortunate to go there so many different times. Now, you know, through my journey, I've been to like 75 countries plus.
Oh
you know,
my God.
You know, doing what I love to do. But, you know, I have different places that I would recommend for like different things, right? And you know, some could be
number one food.
Number one food, for me, Peru. Yeah, that I love Peruvian food, and the reason why I love Peruvian food because it has the Latin kind of blend with an Asian fusion.
Oh, okay.
And I love both. I love Asian food and I love Latin food, and so it's a nice blend of that. And what's funny is when I went to Peru, and I've been there also multiple times. When I went there, I learned that they have a big Japanese community. And really? I was like, oh, now I understand this Asian fusion and things like that. So, you know, I would say the place to go to for food is Peru. But I would just have to just be very biased to say that still Mexican food is my all-time favorite.
Yeah, just on the way over here,
tacos, bro.
I know.
On the way over here, we're like, damn, like we're hungry. Like we didn't eat breakfast.
I know.
Or anything.
I brought my Pop-Tart.
I know, and freaking June didn't have nothing prepared for us, bro. Thanks.
I left my Pop-Tart right there.
Oh! Hey, toss me that Pop-Tart. Let me see that thing. This is what Evelin brought a Pop-Tart, you know.
And I didn't even get to
This
eat
is
it.
how you know they're investing everything they got into this podcast. So you better be listening. They got Pop-Tarts in their back pockets.
And June dropped it. I didn't even get to eat it.
Damn it. Now Evelyn's not going to be able to eat for the rest of the week.
Now I can't even eat my Pop-Tart.
But yeah, so but on the way over here, we're like, man, some chilaquiles will go down right now, you know. And so like, and then we drop off our son, and then my mom's like, oh, I'm gonna just tell his grandpa to take us out to eat. So I'm pretty sure he's eating good right now.
Yeah. So shout out to them, man, because you know how we're talking about babysitters.
Yeah.
For sure, they know we have the podcast, you know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't take it as serious as we do, but they support us by just watching him.
Right.
You know, and we appreciate that 100%.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then honestly, like, there was a point, and I've said it on the podcast before, but there was a point where my mom was like, because my brother, well, she would take care of my son and then, like, my brother's son. And, but they have, like, a business. Like, so they, like, do, like, balloons and
decorations.
Decorations and stuff.
Yeah.
So one time, I don't know how the conversation was going, but then my mom was like, oh, well, I have to take care of their kid. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I have my business too. And she's like, it's not a business. And then I'm like, it is. And then she's like, that doesn't make you money, you know?
She's like, you're not getting paid.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not getting paid. So, and I'm just like, man, like, I took that and I was like, it was kind of like it sucks, but it was kind of like a motivation. And it's like, and now I'm going to invite them to the event, you know, so they can see, like, it has led up to bigger stuff, you know?
Yeah, you know, bro. That's the story of just building something. People again will not believe it until they see it, and you know, you just kind of gotta like, whatever. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But you know, like I said earlier, it's like I've always what's been a big driving force for me, and how I've always been is you give me one no, I'm gonna give you 100 yeses. And what I mean by that is just like, the more you tell me no, or the more you tell me I can't, you're just fueling up my tank. Like, it's gonna be hard to get to empty because I hear a lot of that.
Yeah. Do you have that? I'm gonna show you.
Oh, 100%.
Okay, it seems like that.
No, I'm gonna tell you right now. Like, I'm gonna be real. It's like, I'm not the type of person that, like, on purpose wants to prove people wrong. But if you want to take me there, let's go. You know what I mean? If you want to take me there, let's go. And for me, it's not about proving that person wrong. It's to prove myself right. Yeah. That's what it is.
Yeah.
I want to prove myself right. I'm not going to prove you wrong, but you're going to feel it in the process. But I'm proving myself right because you're going to try to tell me that what my vision is wrong. I'm going to tell you how I'm going to prove myself right.
Yeah.
And then you're going to feel it in the process, and you're going to feel it in the process, and then everybody else is going to feel it in the process.
Yeah.
The more successful you get, the madder people get. It's it is what it is.
Who said it? Yvonne from Spoil Latina?
Oh, yeah.
So she said it. The bigger you get.
No, the next level. There's a new devil, or the next level. There's a new devil, or something like that.
Yeah. Which I mean, it's just like how you said. The bigger you get,
Well, one thing I've learned too about like hate though is like, because I've always like you kind of dwell on like, damn, why do people hate, and why do we have haters? And everybody's heard like, oh, if someone's hating, you're doing something right? Mm-hmm. Everyone's heard that. I've kind of went a little deeper with it, where I think that I think hate comes from fear, right? And so if people are hating on you guys, or they're hating on me, it's not because they want to hate or be envious. It's just because it draws a level of fear, right? And the fear is that they will not get plugged into the new levels that you guys are achieving. So they have a fear that we all started in the same place and we entered new levels, and so they have a fear not achieving that new level with you because we all started in the same place. So it's not hate, it's fear, right? And from a godly perspective or a spiritual perspective, and then what I believe is, fear is only of the devil. It's not from God, right? And so that's the way I see things. So hate is a driver of fear, and fear is why people are hating. It's because they fear you. You're now entering a new season of power, a new season of leadership, a new season of this, and so that's why people fear you, because now you're standing on a new platform. Your podcast is on a new platform, and it's growing to new levels, and people fear that. They don't hate on that, they fear that. And it's easy for us from a cultural perspective to say, oh, that's just hate, that's just envy. No, it's fear. People fear it. And when I learned that about the things that I was doing, I was just like, I've learned to be like not give any type of energy to like people that are hating or stuff like that, because it's going to be the closest people to you guys.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, that's true. We experience it a lot. I mean,
everybody is.
Yeah.
Everybody is.
And I feel like it just happens to everybody, and it's not like, oh, it just happens to us or anything like that. I think it's just a thing that it's unfortunately it's part of like human nature at the end of the day, right? Like,
yeah, it is. Like, and like I said, it's because we all start in the same place.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same place. Everybody can start from zero. Right? But some people take it to 100, some people take it to 50, some people take it to 75, some people take it to 1,000. It's all contingent to how much you put into it, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I said it's like you can't compare, what I do to what you do. So it's like if you want to achieve what I'm achieving, you better be putting in the work that I'm putting in. You know what I mean? Or more. That's just what you have to do. But you can't expect to like join the circle and sit at the table that I'm sitting at or whatever, because I've done this for 29, 30 years. You just started doing it. So don't compare me to you, and people tend to do that a lot. They start to compare. They'll look at your sneakers, they'll look at your hat, they'll look at your watch, they'll look at your chain or the way you guys carry yourselves and dress, and they'll be like, I want to be that, right? I want to be that, but they don't realize the struggle or the story or everything that you've had to go through to be able to achieve what you wanted to achieve.
Yeah, or they don't realize we got these pants at the thrift, like.
Yeah.
They're like.
I feel you.
So it happens because we do like the fit videos sometimes, and they're like, man, where'd you get those pants? And I'm like, oh, at the thrift store, like. Yeah. I mean, like it's just, it happens, right?
Again, Pop-Tarts, thrifted clothes. Because everything else goes into the podcast, right?
I know, reinvest, right?
Yeah. But like, so like, what's the end goal for Break Free or just your journey? Like, what do you think it can get to?
I think there's a couple of things. I think that the number one thing is I want to create a lot of jobs from it. I want to have a lot of locations that create and generate lots of job opportunities for people within our culture and our community to be able to thrive off of what they love to do. That's number one. Number two is to build it to a certain point to where there is an exit strategy for it, to where it's like I can fully step away and maybe sell the business completely or turn it to somebody else, to where somebody else that has deeper pockets can take it to new levels and carry on the tradition of the foundation of what was already built. Because I think to a certain degree, a lot of companies kind of go through that, right? It's like, that's why companies go out of business, because they didn't find new innovation or new inspiration within a company to take it to new levels. So that would be the second thing, and to be able to kind of take that exit strategy and then repeat the process and do something else that would be special, that would inspire people and create more opportunities for that. I don't know 100% what that is. I have an idea. I'd rather not talk about it, but that's what I would want for Break Free. Is I would want Break Free to reach a level of success that allows opportunities for more people worldwide, and it gets to a point where it's so valuable that there are bigger corporations or private equity firms that see the value in it and say, you know what, let's take this company that has 50 or 100 locations and let's go make 8,000 locations or whatever it is, and create more job opportunities. And that would make me feel really special, because I know that we help carve out the foundation for that. So for me, that is kind of the big end goal for Break Free.
Yeah, that's dope.
Yeah, because I just feel like do you know who Christian Guzman is?
No.
You know Alpha Land, like Alpha League?
Yeah, Alpha League, yeah.
Yeah, like I used to watch him on YouTube, and
I know a little bit about it, but yeah.
Yeah, and then like I feel like Break Free kind of like I can see that happening for Break Free, because he started like a small gym and then it grew to like a bigger gym, and now he has like the biggest gym in Texas. And
it's people fly here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I
like,
see it.
Yeah,
social media and stuff.
So he's like in Sugarland or whatever, but I just feel like because Break Free is not its own standalone like building. You know what I mean? Like, do you ever see it being like its own, like people are gonna pull up and it's like the Break Free building?
So I'm gonna try to summarize what I want to say without saying so much, but we acquired our own building recently, and it's a smaller one, but it's a good start for us. But we also have big plans, and this is in Friendswood, Texas, and that's that's where I live now too. But we also have bigger plans to do even much bigger things and bring event centers and tie in more real estate to what we're doing, and really kind of follow the McDonald's approach. Because if a lot of people think McDonald's is a fast food business, but it's really a real estate business. And so one thing in business is, like anything you plug real estate into, you're always going to have appreciation value, right? So it's like if you can go and acquire real estate and open up more locations from purchasing the real estate, even if Break Free as a service business in that building fails, the real estate value is always going to stay there, and you can turn it into something else or lease it to something else.
Yeah.
So you're always going to have a significant backup value in the process. So it's still early for Break Free for that, but it's something that essentially I do want to get into, where it's like there's more buildings owned and things like that, because my entire team and partners, that's exactly like what we want to do. Because even if there is an exit strategy, you can sell the entire business, but you can keep all the real estate.
Yeah.
And then you'll have forever leases, you'll have forever appreciation value. There's a lot of different ways to kind of skin the cat, but at the same time, that is the end goal. And I think that it was hard, not necessarily hard to see it back then, but the vision is more prominent today.
Yeah.
Because we've seen the level of growth, but it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of capital to be able to achieve that. But I know that we can get there, and I think that we're starting that process already.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah, because we named our like whole deal is like Studio 1017. That's like the head thing, and from there is this and much more, Entre Nos, and now Posted. And so the way we came up with that is like, wow, I want to name it Studio 1017 for it to actually be a big studio. Like, you know, like we see it, like people are gonna come in and be like, oh, like this is where everything comes out of, like our brands are. Pretty much everything that we do, you know.
And eventually it would have been cool, like, to have like a startup room for people that want to do podcasts to come record there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I've had a very similar idea. And I think it's great. I heard your story earlier when you talked about kind of the Amazon package. I think those things are awesome. And I think that they're much needed, right? Because, you know, especially in today's society, every kid wants to be an influencer. They want to be a YouTuber and stuff like that. And so if you can hand these tools and kind of help them bypass those challenges, I think it creates a good business. Yeah. So it's a great way to give back, but it also creates a good business. And you know, for other people that tell you guys, well, you guys don't make no money off your podcast. I mean, you are, and you eventually will, right? And it's something that I would highly recommend to keep pursuing. And we talked about it earlier, but you have to treat this like a business. You know, if you treat it like business, it always eventually pay you like one. Yeah. So those things are really, really important into like scaling something and big, you know, making something bigger. Yeah. And that's another thing too is, you know, try to also change your language on certain things. Like instead of saying go bigger, you want to say I want to scale this thing. You know, because how that has helped me is I've learned to plug in the corporate terminology that allowed me to build a corporate mindset to be able to build corporate money.
Oh no, you know I know, because earlier you were talking about like, oh, the activation, and I hear that when I talk to Lucia, like she'll say words like that, you know, and I'm just like, I feel like I'm catching on to those words, you know, because normally to me it'll be like, oh, the event setup or like the event planning. Now it's like a different terminology to, you know,
because essentially it becomes the proper terminology for something. Because if you go to talk to sponsors or partners or whoever, they're gonna they're gonna see how you approach things. And if you know your story and your vision and you can sell it from a corporate standpoint, not just from the culture is always going to be there because that's what we are, right? But if you can kind of plug in the corporate element into it, they're going to know that you're really serious about it. Right? And a lot of your closer people, why they might not take it as serious as what, it's because they still see you guys as cultural people and people that, oh, you know, they're just like us. But no, I'm not like you. Let me show you why.
Like just last night we were at this birthday party, right, for my nephew. And so I was talking to my cousin, and I hadn't seen him in a long time. And then so we're like catching up, and then so I'm just talking about the podcast, like like regular, like, oh yeah, bro, like we have a podcast tomorrow, and you know we're trying to get bigger and all this stuff. But if I was like watching me and him talk, and if I'm seeing it from the outside, if I was to be like, oh yeah, like we're trying to scale up and talk like that, I'm like, damn, he would take it more serious. Like, not that he doesn't, right? But it would seem to like, for him to be like, damn, like this is serious. Like they're getting like more stuff done.
Yeah, because when I was drinking with like his tío and his dad, and then they were making fun of me because I was like, oh man, I'm sunburned because of my work or my job. And then they're like, it's whatever, you know. And then I was like, I didn't want to drink too much because I knew I had to wake up early to come. And then they like to like encourage for us to drink, right? Yeah. Your parents are like, here's another one. And I'm just like, no, I'm good. Like, I don't want to be like drunk, you know? Yeah. And I'm like, I work tomorrow. And then his dad was like, you don't work tomorrow? And I'm like, yeah, we have a podcast, an episode. I have to wake up early, and you're watching Milo, so don't get drunk, you know? Yeah. And then, but me thinking to myself, like, I work because this is considered like work for us, you know?
Anytime you take time out of your day to do anything, it's work.
Yeah. So then I told them, I was like, I work tomorrow. And then they're like, because I knew if I said that, then they were going to back off and not keep insisting with like the drinking,
This is a true story, funny story. Not too long ago, I was sitting in the front of Break Free, like during class hours. And one of these guys that has been coming here for a minute, bringing his kid, he's a young parent here from this area. He sits down next to me and he goes, so what do you do? Right? And I was like, what do you mean, what do I do? You know, he's like, well, I know that you're like a B-boy and you're in charge of like Break Free and stuff like that. But like, I don't see you do anything. That's what he told me. And I was like, well, what do you want to see me do? You know? And he was like, oh, I don't know. It's just like, don't take it the wrong way, but it's just like, I just see everybody here all the time. And I was like, you walk into this building every day, right? And I was like, do you know how many locations we have? Or do you know what we're doing and all this other stuff? I start kind of quizzing him a little bit, you know? And I go, that's what I do, you know? He's like, I don't get it. Like, what do you mean? I was like, I build businesses, and this is what I do. I pour in and invest into making sure that these doors stay open, that we're opening up more locations, and we're creating more opportunities for the kids, for the staff. And I was like, I oversee this entire operation in terms of, from an investment perspective, to be able to build this business. And he was like, but you're not like here, like working every day? I said, not 8 hours a day. I work 24 hours, 7 days a week. I was like, I work at home, I work here, I work when I wake up. I said, every day that I wake up, I told him, I said, every day that I wake up, I have a reason to wake up, you know? And I told him like this, I said, my responsibility is not just to keep break-free doors open, but it's to make sure that everybody gets paid. And I said, so that's what I do. And I know it hit him differently, right? He wanted me to say like, oh, you know, I do this for break free. I teach classes on this day, or I answer phones on this day.
I'm here 9 to 5.
Yeah, I was like, no, this is what I do, you know? And he kind of just stayed quiet or whatever, but I'm very familiar with what that is, you know? And I remember going back, like, too, he's like, even when I was like breaking heavily and like heavily involved in breaking, I remember like, you know, from traveling so much, I always like get bumped up first class, and I'd be flying first class, and I always share this story with everybody. It's kind of a funny story, but I remember like walking, and this was early on, and I've done this a lot, and it's happened a lot, but I would sit down in first class, and then I would see the stewardess kind of walking by me, and it'd be like, just looking at me, right? Looking at me like nonstop, like, and there's nothing but businessmen dressed a certain way. I got J's on, I got my headphones on, I got a hat on, I'm just chilling, like just shorts and a shirt, you know, whatever. And I'm kind of kicking it, and they're looking at me, and I'm just like looking at them too, right? Like just walking in, pass by, and I could be like on an overseas flight that's like an 8-hour flight, and then like 4 hours in or whatever, like halfway through the trip, one of the ladies comes up and she's like, hey, Mr. Rivas, I'm sorry to bother, but my coworkers and I want to know, like, what do you do? And I'm like, in my head, like for a split second, I'm like, damn, do I tell them that I spin on my head for a living, or do I come up with something else? And I'll just be like, oh, well, I'm a sponsored athlete by Monster Energy. I'm on a downhill jet ski team. And they were like, really? That's awesome. That's cool. Congratulations. We thought that you were like a famous DJ or something like that. And I was like,
you did look like a DJ.
I'm like, good thing I didn't tell them that I was a freaking breakdancer, because then I would never hear the end of it, right? Yeah. So, but it's funny because like even in different environments, people would, you know, try to place a certain value or a certain role on you, you know, because maybe you don't fit the part or whatever. But, you know, just keep doing it, and eventually the role will be played out the way it's supposed to be played out. But it's funny, you know, I still to this day I hear it. I walk into Break Free, and some people think that I'm there to take classes, because some of the parents don't see me all the time, or some parents would be like, you know, like I'm just another young kid. I've had people come in and tell me like, hey, I want to talk to the owner, and I'm like, it's me. And they were like, no, seriously, I want to talk to the owner, and I'm like, it's me. You know. So I've experienced like all types of things and different things, and it's like, going back to, you know, what you're talking about, how, you know, people don't see this as work. Man, your vision is not meant to be understood by everybody else. Yeah, It's meant to be understood by you, and you pursuing that and taking that to new levels. And sometimes we'll spend a lot of time trying to make people understand the vision, but the only way they'll understand it is the more they're able to see it.
Yeah, making it happen.
Yeah.
Making it happen. But did you have something
That's
else?
it. I think we're good with this. But yeah.
Well, with that being said, we really, really want to say thank you for
we really
obviously letting us record here, you know, having you as a guest. And yeah.
Other than that, guys, make sure you guys follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, TikTok, and all that stuff.
Subscribe. All his businesses will be in the description below. Make sure y'all go give a follow.
Yeah, Moy, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you guys.
It was really a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Yes.
So. Other than that, that's it, guys. Much love. Peace.
Oh wait, shout out to June too.
Oh yeah,
He's
man, shout
been
out
back
June,
here
June
the
the
whole
barber.
episode.
Hey, you owe us some Pop-Tarts.
And he owes me a Pop-Tart. All right, guys.